And I'm Brian. In this show, we reevaluate every Best Picture nominee from the 21st century and decide whether to keep it or kick it from its Oscar pedestal.
But not today, Brian. Today we're doing a surprise live episode because the Oscars are tomorrow. It's huge. This is big news. And we're an Oscar show, and we should probably be talking about the Oscars. So just seemed like a good time to do a quick video here and talk about some of the stuff we have coming up on the show.
Right on. We can sort of test out our Facebook Live and YouTube Live feeds. So I'm going to do that right now. Just make sure we're actually live. It looks like we are on Facebook.
We're keeping it lo-fi for this one, but that's all right. We're a lo-fi bunch.
I would say so. It's kind of our aesthetic, right?
It's what we're
I don't see that we're on YouTube Live, but maybe we can check that out later. But we got things to talk about here.
Big things. Huge.
Typically when we do the show, if you've been following along, we have kind of a typical agenda where we have we do our Farley Awards, talk about the most awesome moment of the particular movie that we're talking about, which is a Best Picture nominee of the year, starting from 2000. And then we also do our golden takes. We ask each other a golden question of truth. We imagine what might have been. And then we do a big reveal where we say whether we would keep it or kick it from the Oscar pedestal, the top 5 from that year.
That's right. And we are in our 4th season now. We've done miniseries on 1999, on 2000, on 2001. They're all on the can. You can find those on our podcast feed on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. And on Monday, this coming Monday, we're launching our 2002 series. We'll be doing an episode on all 5 Best Picture nominees from 2002. And those are Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. We have The Hours in that bunch, Gangs of New York, The Pianist, and The Winner, Chicago. Plus, we'll throw in some fun bonus episodes in there, too. Other big movies from the year that maybe the Oscars missed.
Right on. And so we'll also we're going to start a new series also where we talk about some bonus episodes from movies that are being shown publicly in Palm Coast, which is where we live, Palm Coast, Florida.
Because we don't want to just live in the past, Brian.
Yeah, we got to do today's movies. So April 29th, Thursday, we'll do a Facebook Live video on News of the World, which stars Tom Hanks. It's directed by Paul Greengrass, who also made Captain Phillips, Jason Bourne Ultimatum, and The Bourne Supremacy. News of the World came out last year, and it is nominated this year for 4 Oscars. They're all technical Oscars. But that's what we're talking about. We're trying to reevaluate the Best Picture nominees, we're trying to learn about them together. We watch them and talk about what worked out well. There's Best Sound, Best Productions Design, Best Achievement in Music Written for Motion Pictures, and then Cinematography. Although I would argue, Mike, that I don't really consider cinematography, the director of photography role in the movie, as being purely like a technical role. I kind of see it as almost like right hand of the director. And I feel like that is often one of the things that stands out to me the most, along with the acting in a movie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm actually pretty excited to talk about News of the World with the cinematography, because I think it was pretty interesting. And I'm excited to learn more about that cinematographer. His name is Dariusz Wolski. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. I'll try to find that out as well.
But I think it's important that we do these kinds of bonus episodes, because sort of the whole point of this show is we're reevaluating those episodes from the past in order to decide whether or not they belong in the year's top 5. And the only real way that we could do that, Brian, is if we know what else came out in the year. I can't see a Gangs of New York and then decide it's no good without knowing what it's competing against for those spots. So that's what we're doing. So we're going to be doing a lot of these bonus episodes throughout the summer, and we've got some non-Oscar-y ones in there too, like Sonic the Hedgehog, which
whoa. You're saying Sonic is non-Oscar-y? Why are you?
You know what? I haven't seen it yet, so it might be. I mean, why not? I'm not too cool to put Sonic in my top 5. We'll also be doing Mulan,
it's not going to be in your top 5. I know that for sure.
Hey, you don't even know me, Brian. You don't know what I'm capable of. But you can find our whole working schedule on the events feed of our Facebook page.
Right. Mulan, by the way, I don't really know what to expect. I have not seen Mulan yet, but I was curious to see how many people pointed out that it was a good martial arts fighting movie when we did Crouching Tiger.
Interesting.
A few months ago. So we'll see if that really holds up. So the live episodes that we'll be doing are mostly chosen by the Flagler County Public Library. So we're trying to kind of give the library a boost. They cannot promote their own movies that they're showing. They do like free screenings of some of these movies that are on DVD, but their licensing agreement with the movie company, I guess, is that they can't reveal the title of the movie. So they could never go on their own Facebook page and say, News of the World will be shown on, this date. So we're just going to do that for them, and we're going to put it on the Palm Coast Observer Facebook page as well. So that way we can kind of give the library some love. So, but we're looking for a sponsor for that to help support the show. So if you are interested, or a business that's interested, then let us know. Send us a comment or send an email at bestpicturethis@gmail.com.
It's true.
So,
and part of it for me too,
yeah.
I'm just going to cut in there and cut you off, because I have to say, I love the library. I just sort of discovered the library as a hub for movies like a few years ago, and it blew my mind because I felt like I was back in Blockbuster. It was like I'm walking these aisles, I'm perusing DVDs. It was great. It's a great experience, and it's one that we sort of lost in the the streaming culture. So if you want to get it back, go to your library, and everything is free. So how can you beat that?
It's really sad that you, as a fully functioning professional adult, are sort of just discovering the library at this stage of life, but that's fine.
Well, no one really said
the library also has books that you can read.
Yeah, every now and then I'll get one of those and mix it in to make myself feel a little better about the whole, intellectual exercise. But yeah, library is great.
But that reminds me, by the way, that I still have this book that you let me borrow.
Is that,
you might have forgotten that you let me borrow that.
Yeah.
No, this is Movies Are Prayers by Josh Larsen.
That's a good one.
That one I think I've had for about 4 or 5 months, so I still have a couple years left on that checkout.
Yeah, I did forget that I let you borrow it, but I think that's your strategy. Hold it so long to where I forget, and then it's just yours forever.
I have tried that with the library as well, but they eventually come back and get you. Yeah. Fortunately, you're not as cruel as the library with late fees.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Oscars.
Yesterday.
I have bought some replacement movies and books over the years, but it's supporting the library. So
it is. That's how I justified it also.
So, so let's talk about the Oscars this year. I did a little bit of reading about the Oscars. I have a question to ask you, and then we'll do a little bit of trivia on 2 of the directors that are nominated, Chloe Zhao and David Fincher.
Yeah.
So first off, the Oscars. This is big news, Mike. You're going to be so excited to hear this.
All right, build it up.
They have actually consolidated. They've actually consolidated 2 categories this year. Sound mixing and sound editing are now just best sound.
Best sound.
Are you sad to see that go? Are you sad to see those go?
No, I think it's okay, but only
because
what is
the difference?
Well, that's the thing. Is I don't know, and
I don't know.
most people probably don't. I bet you people who work in sound probably don't love this. They probably feel like what I do is much different than the sound designers. I'm in there actually cutting it up.
Yeah.
But for us laymen's, Brian, I think that one is fine.
We can't tell the difference between mixing and editing. All right. No. So another thing is that Steven Soderbergh is producing and directing the Oscar show that is happening tomorrow.
Your favorite.
I don't know about that, but I do admire him. And as we have pointed out, he has no sideburns, so we have to admire his seriousness. So Steven Soderbergh, he said that he wants to direct it as if it were a film itself. So I'll be curious to see how that exactly works.
Yeah,
beginning next year, with the 94th Academy Awards, the Best Picture category will be set at 10 instead of fluctuating. I think I don't know why it has to fluctuate. That always seemed kind of strange to me. Like there weren't 10 good enough movies to be in this category this year. We only had 8, and then you're like, the ones that are snubbed feel like it was so far off that we couldn't even include it in the 10. So anyway, it's going to be 10 next year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have mixed feelings on it. For one, we've already had 10 before, right? This is not new. It's just that it's going to be formalized from here on out, 10 every year. Okay. So, all right. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, I don't know. I mean, why do we need to do 10? And we used to only do
I
5.
kind of
Everyone
like
was
the
fine
idea of
with
the
5.
5. It
I
felt more
like,
prestigious.
I guess so. But also, I feel like I was looking at these, at the historical, the nominees every year. And then once they changed in 2009, I don't know. I just feel like everything sort of opens up. All of a sudden, you get these weird titles in there that never would have made the 5. And I think that sort
Are
of
you
breaking
saying
through that
District
barrier.
9 never be in a 5?
District 9 would not have ever been in a 5. No, I don't buy that. And since it's in the 10, it didn't win. I don't know if it deserves to have won, but I think that just having it there all of a sudden makes us all more used to the fact that, a sci-fi movie can be taken seriously. And before that time, that really wasn't the case, where it was like you have genre movies over here, and then you have really classy Oscar movies over here, and there's just 5 of them. So I like the 10, but I don't. If we don't have 10 in the year that we should prop up, then I don't know. Why not just make it 8?
Yeah. Well, your wish will not be granted. It's going to 10.
Okay.
Another thing that's changing is they're going to do a quarterly viewing process through the Academy screening room, which means that instead of having all the movies that are, Oscar bait being released at the end of the year, it'll sort of ideally level the playing field so that even a movie in the summer might kind of get equal sort of Academy attention. I don't know.
I don't buy it. I don't buy it, because at the end of the day, if
you still save your movie till the end of the year. Yeah.
Yes, because it's still going to be the last thing on people's mind. I could have seen a movie in the summer that I loved and wrote down like possible Oscar Best Picture of the Year. But then if I see another one in December, it's like recency bias.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. This year, there were some movies that were delayed because of the pandemic that probably could have been among the Oscar bait, but were not. So here's 3 movies that were going to possibly come out this year, but then were pushed till next year. Steven Spielberg is doing West Side Story. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I guess. That will be one that I'm not thrilled to watch. I'm gonna throw that out there right now. West Side Story, okay, I like it. It's
I've
very,
never
very
even
unique.
seen West Side Story.
You've never seen the original?
I typically avoid musicals, which I've been forced to watch some because of our Best Picture this slate of movies like Chicago and Moulin Rouge. But another one that's coming next year that was delayed because of the pandemic for this year's Oscars potentially is Lin-Manuel Miranda is doing a pre-Hamilton musical movie version called In the Heights.
In the Heights.
So that'll be interesting. Lin-Manuel Miranda, kind of the darling of Broadway.
Yeah.
There's also the remake of Dune starring Timothée Chalamet.
I'm here for
original
that.
Dune. The original Dune, of course, directed by David Lynch, which he hated, but I'll be interested to see how this one works. I do like Timothée Chalamet. I think he's pretty good. So then let's go to the question that I had for you.
All right, the big question. Hit me.
This is about gender and race equity, because this is a big topic in the Oscars. There's news releases from the Oscars if you go to oscars.com or Academy Awards. I forget the website. But they have something they're starting called Academy Dialogues. It starts with us, trying to change that whole reputation of the Oscars are all just a bunch of, the Academy is all a bunch of, old white men who only like movies about white people.
Yeah.
And to be fair, there's been a lot of people of color that seem like have done Oscar-worthy work and didn't get nominated, and there was a big problem for several years. It still is kind of a big conversation.
Yeah.
But the question I have to you, Mike, is if we talk about race and gender equality, can the Oscars really make an impact in that conversation, do you think? Or are they sort of being blamed for something that's just a problem worldwide, but can the Oscars do anything about it?
Well, first of all, I think that it's sort of there's no one better to talk about this issue than 2 white guys. So I think that we have to put that out right at the start, that we have no right to be talking about this. But I think the Oscars can make an impact, because if it is important to people and we can trace back a pattern of sort of certain ethnicities, certain races systematically being left out, then that is a problem that we should solve. So if I don't feel like we should go out of our way to make a point and, you know, put certain films into that bunch that maybe don't belong just because we want to be inclusive. But I do think that it should be on our minds. And yeah, I think that would lead to some sort of improvement culturally over time.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that the movies are actually the perfect place to try to make a difference here. I'm going to try to find this. I found this quote in the latest edition of Entertainment Weekly.
I like that you're flipping through magazines here. In the meantime, I'll say that Dan Moose Wren was chiming in with our sci-fi talk, and he is excited about Dune, and he loves District 9. So, I mean, we're not alone. I mean, genre has a place in the Oscars. I've been saying this from
Star Wars was nominated. 1977, Star Wars.
Yeah, but we could prop up and cherry pick any example and say that, you know, but that defies the rule. But if it is an exception, it doesn't count.
So this is the episode. This is the edition that I'm looking at right here.
Close out.
By the way, product placement to Entertainment Weekly. They're not paying for this, but if you're Rolling Stone magazine executives and you're like, man, I wish our magazine were on this podcast, give us an email and we'll try to work you in for a new product placement deal.
Yeah.
So here's. I didn't talk to you about that ahead of time, Mike. Sorry about that. But, okay, so One Night in Miami, right? It was not nominated for Best Picture, but here's what the article says in Entertainment Weekly. It's by David Canfield. He says this, that Miami, in a surprise, didn't make the Best Picture cut, and that King, meaning Regina King, the director, this is her debut directing movie, I believe, that King couldn't add to the history-making nature of the directing field speaks to the work that still has to be done. So the implication here is that because One Night in Miami was not nominated, that is evidence that we still have a problem with race equity in the movies. And that is a big problem of an argument, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because can we really, we don't want to be starting to choose the movies to say like, okay, these movies are both good, but we are obligated to choose the movie that is directed by a person of color or from a marginalized group. We're obligated to choose that one to level the playing field. I think that we really get into a lot of trouble doing that. And I think that because if we do that, then we're no longer talking about the art. And I hope that the Oscars is mostly about the art and not about the politics, not about the money, not about all these kind of things. I know it is about all that, but it
always has been. I mean, you can make a compelling case that it's almost never been about the art.
It's true, but I would like to think that a show that is trying to ostensibly choose the best art that is being created, that we can at least we can do our best to still focus on the art. Now, the problem is that there has been a lot of great art that has been not selected, and maybe because people just aren't taking it seriously enough.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. And we've got to figure out a way to change that narrative. But it gets very complicated to me, and I have a hard time like going all that way where, well, if One Night in Miami wasn't, then the Oscars must be racist. It might just be that not everybody loved that movie. I don't know. I didn't see the movie yet. I haven't watched anything of 2021. Well, or 2020, not many. I watched News of the World because we're doing it, and I watched Mank because I was really curious, and I think David Fincher is a fascinating director. But and you saw Nomadland already, didn't you?
Yeah, Nomadland is great, but that's what makes this conversation so complicated, though, because this is art. So by its very nature, it is subjective. So one person's experience seeing One Night in Miami, if they loved it and it's definitely a lock for their top 5, then they have a right to feel like it got snubbed for unreasonable reasons. But if I didn't like it and I have the opposite reaction, where is the line between what should and shouldn't be included? I don't think that the line actually exists. So that's, I think, where the Oscars have this sort of social responsibility to be inclusive and to feel like they're opening up those gates a little bit wider.
Yeah.
But obviously those lines are hard to define. And the issue is not so simple. It's just, nominating some films that maybe should have been nominated in years past and were not.
I do think that I've heard this from many people that I've interviewed in my job, in the newspaper, that when if you are a person of a marginalized group, like of a minority race or anything else, excuse me, and you see like a teacher who is your race or the group that you identify with, and you think, wow, or I see somebody in power in a prominent position, and you think, you feel like you're now part of society more and less marginalized. I think the movies have a great power to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, I think that there's a lot of good that can be done, and that the Oscars can make a big impact by focusing on it and trying to be more inclusive. So let's go on to some trivia about Chloe Zhao. I did not know anything about Chloe Zhao before this year. She has made 2 movies that were kind of, indie and not really widely seen. Songs My Brothers Taught Me and The Rider. Have you seen
The Rider? I've seen The Rider, and it's great.
Uh-huh.
And it's got a lot of similarities to Nomadland, but there's definitely this sort of this sense that spirituality is connected with nature directly, and not necessarily to a higher power, but just in living in a world that has all of these natural wonders. And The Rider, very different storyline, but you still get that sense. And a lot of it does come through in the cinematography, which I guess plays to your point earlier that, like, where's the science? Where's the line between like technical craft and artistry? And I think cinematography is really riding that line.
It does, yeah. So Chloe Zhao, she moved to the United States when she was 15, and she hardly knew any English. Her father was a pretty successful businessman, but she eventually went to NYU, and her film professor was Spike Lee. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
She is nominated this year for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Film Editing, which is quite a big achievement. 4 Oscars for one director. And what's interesting too, so let's see. She has 34 awards so far this season, going to all the different festivals, from Venice through the Golden Globes. And those 34 awards, there's 34 for directing, 13 for screenplay, 9 for editing. And that makes her the most awarded person since Alexander Payne did this with Sideways for that 2004 movie.
Wow.
So she's kind of in
these 2 movies, Sideways and Nomadland, could not be more different.
Well, now it's funny you say that, because I will say that probably, and again, I've not seen Nomadland, but I get the vibe of it from, the trailers and reading about it. But the next movie that Chloe Zhao is doing is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. She's doing Eternals, which is slated for release in November 2021. So we'll see. It kind of reminded me of the conversation that we had in a previous episode about how Sam Raimi, does Evil Dead 80 whatever, and then he does Spider-Man in 2002. You do Peter Jackson going from low budget horror to huge budget epic fantasy.
Yeah,
that's the same thing that's happening here with Chloe Zhao. Going from spiritualistic.
Naturalism.
All these 3 movies, by the way, Songs My Brothers Taught Me, The Rider, and Nomadland, they all have a lot of
non-professional actors.
Yes, non-actors, which is interesting. I don't think that's going to happen in the Eternals as much.
No, I don't think so. But if it did, that'd be cool.
We want some non-actor aliens to be in this movie.
Yeah.
So something else that's kind of interesting with that is that you have in those 3 first movies, which she considers like sort of a trilogy, that they are, she had so much control. I mean, she was the director, writer, producer, and editor in all 3 of them, except she didn't edit The Rider. So again, she's not going to have that kind of control with Eternals. She's only directing, not writing, not producing, not editing with the Eternals. I wanted to read one quote from this Entertainment Weekly. Apologies to Rolling Stone or other magazines that feel left out. I apologize for that.
They can't all be on Best Picture list. There's only so many ad slots.
So Chloe Zhao said this: every story needs the right tool to tell it, the right genre to tell it. Talking about her decision to adapt Nomadland poetically rather than factually, because she took a lot of liberties, even though she used a lot of non-actors who were actually part of that whole movement in Nomadland.
Yep. She
says, quote, "It has to be fiction if it has to be," unquote. To ground it in an authentic environment, however, she recruited real-life van dwellers, some featured in the book itself, to play fictionalized versions of themselves. So anyway, I think that's pretty awesome.
I like that. And
it reminds me of,
and it's a conversation that sort of parallels conversations that we've had before about how true a movie should stay to its source material if it's based off of a book, or how true it should stay to the real life of someone if it's a biopic. And I've always kind of had the feeling that it's not obligated to stay true to those things at all, because first and foremost, the priority is making the movie a unique being. And if that means taking liberties, changing things,
I was thinking
right
about
ahead.
this late at night, Mike.
What's that?
I was thinking about this late at night, Mike.
Okay.
You kept me up about this particular issue.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I feel great about a director changing up a fictionalized work and making it their own fictionalized work. But when you are saying that this is based on a true story and it's based on history, and you're like screwing around with the history, I think that as a viewer, I start to have a bit of a problem with that. Not like it's some kind of a moral flaw or something, but I think that the problem is that I start to trust the director a little bit less. Like, they're claiming that they're telling me a true story, but they know they're changing things that you could look up in any history book or on Wikipedia and know that it's wrong. And it starts to make me it's not like, again, I don't think the director is wrong about it, but as a viewer, it makes me then start to question other things in the movie. And it's distracting to me to the point where it kind of snaps that suspension of disbelief. And I find that I get a little less emotionally involved in the story. Maybe not everybody has that experience, but I think that does happen to me, is what I'm realizing.
But my point is, just do away with the disclaimer that says based on a true story altogether, because that's a marketing piece. That's not a creative choice. You think about something like Inglourious Bastards or Django Unchained. You know, Tarantino is taking true things that happened in history and completely changing them. So now we get this revisionist history, and we're all aware that this is not true to life, and no one cares because we don't have the airs put on of this is based off a true story. So take it very seriously. You have to know going in, this is important. And I think that things are more interesting when you give yourself the freedom to do that and to take in something in that way.
Here's a contrary example, though. I think those two examples I'm good with, because the tone of them is I mean, it's Tarantino. It's sort of like history plus graphic novel equals Tarantino, you know, in those situations. But what about something like First Man? Have you seen First Man?
No.
I don't know if I should give this away because we're going to watch it. I think it was nominated for Best Picture, wasn't it?
I'm not sure.
It's based on Neil Armstrong.
Yeah.
And there's a point at the very end of the movie that is so central to the themes, and it's probably made up. And I felt like it didn't ruin the movie for me, but it definitely changed the experience for me. When a movie is trying to be so meticulous about true to life, like Ron Howard did Apollo 13, you know, speaking of space movies, and they spent all kinds of money recreating down to the, you know, the paper clips on the desk kind of detail about what it was supposed to be like. If you do that and then you like combine three characters into one, I think there's a jive. It doesn't quite jive as well with me, but I know sometimes you have to do it. So, you know,
yeah,
agree to disagree on that. I don't know.
I guess so. I just feel like the story is king and should dictate every other choice that you make in that movie. And if I wanted the real story, I'd watch a documentary. But I'm watching a movie, and so I'm okay giving that license over to the filmmakers and saying make it your own. If the movie is better off for it, do what you got to do.
All right, let's talk for just a couple of minutes about David Fincher. He directed Mank. He's up for Best Director. Mank got nominated for 10 Oscars, by far the most this year. So David Fincher's career is pretty interesting. As a kid, when he was 2 years old, his family moved next door to George Lucas. So, I mean, this is a good neighbor. This is a good neighbor to have. In 1984, David Fincher was working for Industrial Light and Magic, and he left to go and direct a television commercial for the American Cancer Society that depicted a fetus smoking a cigarette. And that got him a lot of attention because it was pretty weird, and it got him a lot of attention and probably led to other things in his career. He's directed like 50 music videos and won 2 Grammys for them. And he kind of, he took some time away from movies. He directed Alien 3 and thought it was really not what he liked, not what he wanted. And he's taken some time off in between some movies. But anyway, I just thought that was pretty interesting background for David Fincher. There's been a lot of directors who have done music videos, and I think it'd be interesting to study how they use those techniques.
Yeah.
And actually, the guy who did the photography for News of the World, same thing. He's done a lot of music videos.
Oh, nice.
And I think you see that with there's a lot of like sunspots and bright washouts in different situations. So that is, I think that's about enough to say about these Oscars. They're airing tomorrow. You can watch clips, I'm sure, after that. And we hope that you will join us to listen to our discussion on The Two Towers, which is the next episode that's coming out in the podcast proper, which is on Spotify and Apple. Thanks to people who are listening in, by the way, because we've hit some charts on top film history podcasts. So,
Oh, we're huge. Yeah. And that Lord of the Rings episode is going to be coming out on Monday. And then we'll have the hours after that, all part of the 2002 series. But we want to hear from you. If you listen to the show, let us know what you think. Give us some pointers on what you like, what you don't like, what you want more of. But subscribe to our feeds. Let us know what you think. And any comments that you leave, we'll always consider to read on the show. You can find us at bestpicturethis.com or on Facebook and Twitter at bestpicturethis.
If you want to support the show, then you can also go to patreon.com/bestpicturethis. We do have a patron, Chris from Tampa, and he is helping us to choose a bonus episode title. If you want to help choose a bonus episode title, then join in. And again, patreon.com/bestpicturethis.
And I like that too, letting someone help us pick an episode, because they're going to be weird titles. We're not going to be doing the same sort of prestige pictures that we do every week. So it gives us another chance to pull in different kinds of movies, which I like. But yeah, again, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a review and subscribe to the show.
Yep. Thanks a lot. And we will sign off. Hopefully signing off goes well and we're not sitting here awkwardly looking at the screen for a few minutes.
This is an experiment, Brian. We're just trying to figure out how it works.
All right. Thanks a lot for joining us, everybody.
Thanks a lot.